height of the gap between the train and the platform.
You're listening to Past the Chipotle, the show that will take you to discover the edible treasures of Mexico. Episode 22. Welcome to this episode of Past the Chipotle, the audible companion of SABOR. This is Mexican Food, a digital magazine dedicated to exploring the markets, streets, recipes, and traditions that make Mexico an edible paradise. I'm your host, Rocio Carvajal, food historian, cook, and author. To find more information about this show, please go to pastthechipotle.com. Find the show on Twitter as Chipotle Podcast.
Hello everyone, this is Kira from the United States, and I love listening to the Past the Chipotle podcast.
Hola, soy Ramiro, soy de Matamoros, México, y me encanta escuchar el podcast Past the Chipotle.
Hello, I am B. Yolanda Ocon from Amarillo, Texas, USA, and I love listening to Past the Chipotle podcast.
Привет, я Екатерина из Эстонии, и я обожаю слушать Past the Chipotle podcast.
Merhabalar, ben Estefania Sierra, Meksikali İmam İstanbul'da yaşıyorum ve Past the Chipotle podcast şahane, onu dinlemeyi çok seviyorum.
Welcome to episode number 22 that features the youngest of my guests so far in the show. Her name is Yolanda Ocon. She is a young Mexican expat living here in London. I met Yolanda a few months ago at the beginning of the year, and when I learned about her work and how interesting I thought she was and what a good conversation and perspective I thought it would be for the show, I decided to invite her. Yolanda juggles several jobs. She is marketing manager at the renowned School of Wok in London. And back when we recorded this interview, the offices were still at Elephant and Castle, but have now relocated near the actual school, which is in Covent Garden in central London. Since Yolanda's arrival a few years ago, she found that the creative and vibrant food scene of the city lit her long life passion for Mexican food, and the revelation that pretty much all food manifestations are the sparkles that come out of encounters between cultures inspired her to grab the chance and put her creativity and culinary instincts to launch Eat Latin, a food startup that offers dining experiences through supperclubs and private catering. And she harvests foods and flavors, ingredients and inspiration from Latin America. And you will hear more about that project in the interview. Traditional foods, not only here in England, but I would say in the world, are really having a moment. And a way to approach them as culinary institutions and fertile ground for innovation presents a big challenge. But it's actually the perfect catalyst to redefine the way we appropriate our own heritage and what it means to us now. Mexico's vast and complex gastronomy is approached by many young and talented cooks inside and outside Mexico as raw material to create new interpretations of it. Tradition purists can sometimes have a monolithic version of the national cookbook, forgetting that, well, none of those recipes or cooking methods really existed, like, from the beginning. They are the direct product of outrageous innovation and never-seen combinations of flavors and cooking methods from indigenous, European, and even Asian and African cuisines that over the centuries have become what we now recognize as a Mexican cookbook. So it's my observation that the task of creating new traditions is not only achieved by paying homage to that knowledge, but also by standing on the proverbial shoulders of cooks past and present to create inspirational and meaningful dishes. Several weeks after I recorded this episode, I met with Yolanda again, and this time at the School of Wok for a cooking class. She invited me and my partner, and we went as students and had such great fun sharing stories, learning a few Chinese staple dishes, and it was absolutely fabulous. One of the reasons why I like interviewing people from such different backgrounds and having them as guests on the show is because I am absolutely convinced that just as we can learn so much from well-established cooks and their life experience and career, I personally see just with the same interest and curiosity the rising of new talented people who bring fresh blood and ideas that contribute to shifting not only the gastronomic offer of cities, but also are pretty much the blood and oxygen that keeps the food industry full of dynamic and creative energy that keeps us inspired and wondering, how can we appropriate other cultures in a respectful way, but a creative one as well, and our own, how to see it through someone else's eyes. So in this conversation, we talked about travels, cultural exploration, entrepreneurship, inspiration, and life. Yolanda will also share one of her recent favorite books that I think you will also find it very interesting. And thank you, spasiba, gracias, to everybody that sent greetings for the show. Thank you so much. I appreciate them all, and it really puts a smile on my face just to know that wherever you are in the world, you are listening to this, and I hope really that is as entertaining as it is inspiring and thought-provoking. So, without further delay, I hope you enjoy this episode. I am in Elephant and Castle in South London, where, curiously enough, there aren't any castles nor elephants, but the name derives from a coaching inn that seems to have its origins in Elizabethan times. Yolanda, thank you so much for welcoming the microphones of Pasta Chipotle. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the time to share my experiences with you.
It's a pleasure. It always really makes me quite excited to meet people who step beyond their comfort zone and challenge themselves to try new things and find their passion in unexpected places. And that is precisely your case, Yolanda, because you left your hometown in Torreon, in the northern state of Coahuila in Mexico, to take part in an exchange program to get working experience in logistics in Germany. Now, how did you go from that to end up working with Jeremy Pang and his award-winning School of Wok in London?
Well, that's a funny story. I went to Germany for a 6-month exchange program, and then they ended up staying for 1.5 years, where I did an internship in the field of logistics. Then after Germany, I moved to London to study my MBA. At the time, I was looking for a part-time job. I found an ad from the School of Wok where they were looking for a marketing intern. The whole concept of teaching people how to cook sounded very interesting to me. Plus, I really like Asian food, so I saw this as an opportunity to learn more about it. Then I went for an informal internship with an interview with Jeremy, and I guess we can say that it all went really well. 5 years on, and now I am the head of marketing and sales here at the school.
Well, that is quite a change then in your professional life, but also culturally, because just adapting from Mexico to Germany to London, cooking and promoting Chinese cooking, how did you actually manage to adapt culturally to all those changes and experiences in such a short time?
Well, to be honest, it's not as easy as it sounds. It took me a while, especially here in London. The first couple of years were a bit difficult. So back home, when you want to see friends, it's just like a 15-minute ride. In here, it takes you an hour to meet someone. So it means that you don't see people that often. But nowadays I'm used to it, and I really like my life here in London.
That sounds fabulous. And just to explain a bit more, for those who have never been to Mexico, our country, that is Yolanda's and myself, is not only ethnically diverse and quite large, with a total surface of 1,972,550 square kilometers, and with a population of approximately 123,675,325 people, approximately. Now, your home state of Coahuila, Yolanda, is a beautiful territory surrounded by rugged mountain ranges, and your regional cuisine had a very different evolution to that of central Mexico, where the capital of the country is located, by the way. Now, how would you define the gastronomic traditions of Coahuila, and how, in your opinion, they are different from central Mexico?
Well, I will say that the food in Coahuila is a bit more simple than other regions in the country. We have a really dry climate. This means that we don't have a huge range of fruits and vegetables, rather than if you compare it to the central Mexico or the south. Well, this means that food is simple, but we do eat a lot of meat, I must tell you. Coahuila is one of the best meat producers in Mexico, and if you add that to the hot weather, you get yourself a barbecue party almost every weekend. And not any barbecue. Barbecues in my hometown are almost like a ritual. You have loads and loads of food, starting with a big bowl of frijole charros, which is a bean stew with bacon, chorizo, and onions, and it's delicious. Then you also have your side dishes like grilled tender cactus, or in the desert, guacamole, corn and flour tortillas, and a good selection of homemade salsas, of course.
That sounds delicious any day of the year, of course. Here in Britain, there is a tradition of just barbecuing during the summer and probably late spring. So you are quite lucky to enjoy these parties every other weekend.
Yeah. I really get homesick during the summer here when it starts raining, and I know that back home they're having a barbecue.
Oh.
But I guess it's part of the deal of living here.
It is indeed. And do you try to recreate those barbecues here? Have you tried to make a good pot of frijoles charros?
Yeah, it's funny enough. Well, I live in a tall building and I live on the 11th floor. So the first time we moved there, we put a barbecue, thinking, oh yeah, no, it's easy. We can just make a barbecue at home. It's safe. You know. We did a couple of times a barbecue, but then we found out that we were not allowed because it's quite dangerous. Like imagine in a balcony on the 11th floor having a barbecue. Well, that was about it. We haven't done barbecues again. It's every time that we have summer here in London, we just find new friends that have a garden and then just do a barbecue at their house.
That is the condition. Have you got a garden? Yes, you have a friend now. Well, like you've mentioned before, this leap between enjoying different aspects of life and culture in your hometown, then in Germany, now here, well, you started doing pretty much just marketing and a bit of PRing for the School of Wok. And of course, you were in, permanent contact with the food that they were producing. And there is, I think, a leap between enjoying a cultural manifestation, that is, for example, food, and becoming involved in the production of it. Harvesting from your experience and developing new skills to become a cook, and quite a creative one, is something definitely requiring a good amount of drive and discipline, which no doubt you have. But how did you transition to embracing cookery while still performing your job as a marketing manager?
Well, I've always been interested about food. I love food and love cooking. And since moving to London, I've been working in some way or another in food. Here at the school, we're always talking about food, whether it's what we're going to have for lunch, which restaurant we're going to try next, what new menus should we teach the classes. It's always food. So for me, it was quite clear that I wanted to start my own project in the same field. The difficult thing here is trying to juggle two things at the same time. Working full-time at the school, finding time in the evenings and weekends to work on Eat Latin, and on top of everything, trying to keep an active social life. And that's definitely, it's not easy. But I've learned a few things along the way. And some of it is like, well, I need to be patient and persistent. And the projects might take a bit longer to happen, but I'm positive that I will achieve my end goal at the end of the day.
Well, that sounds like a very disciplined approach indeed. I will just try and stretch the last part you mentioned about your social life, because well, for those who have never been in London, it's really a diverse city. There's people from all over the world. And while there are pockets of Latin American immigrants here in London, they are a bit scattered, I would say, in the city. And mainly these small pockets of immigrants are constituted by Central and South American expats. Let's remind the listeners that Mexico is part of the Northern Hemisphere. So Mexico is actually North America because we are above the equator. But you have reached out to these Latin American cooks and have built a collaborative network with chefs and cooks of Hispanic origin and created your own startup, which you just mentioned, under the name of Eat Latin. How did you come up with the idea? How did you put it together? How often do you do these collaborations? And what kind of cooks have you invited to work with you? How this evolved and what has been the outcome of all this?
Well, the idea of Eat Latin began because I wanted to learn a bit more about Latin American cuisines. We know that here in London you can find people from everywhere, so I guess that's where the idea began. I thought that it was a good way just to research, cook and write about the recipes, but then the project evolved into supperclubs, which I currently run every so often. I wanted to host them in collaboration with other chefs, with the idea to increase my opportunity to learn even more. And so far I work with friends that I have experience working in different kitchens, mainly Latin American food. And the supperclubs have been a great success so far. I had led opportunities of working with Mexican and the Salvadorian embassies.
How did that happen? I mean, it's not like, yes, I have worked with the embassies. Like, how did that happen? And are these cooks that you collaborate with part of, teams of restaurants, or they also run their own supper clubs and just get together and throw these amazing events?
Well, I think it was mainly luck. Well, one of my friends, which I did the first supperclubs with, I met him while having a few beers at a Mexican bar. We all can spot a Mexican person here in London. So I was with a friend, we were having a couple of beers, and I told my friend, like the guy behind the bar is Mexican, just talk to him in Spanish. He ended up being Mexican, of course, and he told me, the guy that works in the kitchen is Mexican as well. I'm going to introduce you to him. So we started talking, and then I guess we saw the passion about food in both of us. So we said, okay, let's start doing something. And he has been living here in London for more than 10 years, working in Mexican kitchens, and he has a lot of connections. So one of them was the Mexican embassy. And there was a point when they reached to us to say if we could do like a couple of events with them. So that's how that started. For the Salvadorian embassy, I have a friend that works in the embassy, and again, like she knew that I was doing my supper clubs, so she invited me to one of their events. So I think at the end of the day, it's just reaching out to the right people, or just blog as well. I think also by starting Eat Latin, I have pushed myself a bit more to meet people from Latin America. So I think that has helped me a lot, because before that I didn't knew even Mexican people. I didn't knew many. But by starting Eat Latin, I have pushed myself into
a bigger pool.
Yeah, I mean, you need to start meeting people, and at the end of the day, if you want to learn the cuisine of the country, you need to know its people as well. Yeah, it's where you get the best recipes from. Like there's always a dish that brings you back home. Yeah, so it's just like talking to people from everywhere and then saying like, well, what's the dish? And you will always find a great story behind it. That's the best way to do it, really.
Well, like you have just started sharing that in your line of work, and as part of the many actors changing people's perceptions and relationships with food, and precisely not understanding the culture behind traditional cuisines. Through the School of Wok, where you currently work, and your own independent events, what do you think has contributed to increase or change the interest in learning and having these kind of experiences of like supper clubs and cookery classes? what do you think that people are seeking now, and what kind of people are taking part in this shift, in this new way of approaching and understanding food?
Well, I think we definitely live in a more connected world nowadays. People are looking for new adventures, new places to discover locally and around the world. Then you have the influence of social media, where you see photos and videos of different destinations, delicious food all over the world. So a lot of people that come to the school and my events are people that either been to the country and want to have more of that delicious food that they have during their travels, or people that are just curious about discovering new flavors. But also you get the customers that are following the latest food trends on social media. And if you happen to offer that's the trend.
Like avocado on toast?
Yeah. So then you're in luck because you're giving people what they want. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Then, like, because, you are precisely in marketing and your part of your job is knowing exactly your demographic and your market. How would you profile these people? Like, are they primarily younger, older, inner city dwellers, adventurers, a bit of everything?
Yeah, a bit of everything. Like, especially at the school, our demographic is from like 25 all the way up to like 54. Those are the people that come to the school. And then you get to hear the stories when they come to the classes. And a lot of people, it's like possibly they've lived in Hong Kong and they came back, so they want to recreate the dishes that they were having while they were living there as an expat. Or I think because it's so easy now to fly to Asia, then you get a lot of people that they've been to Thailand, they had a class there, so they really enjoy the experience. So now they come back here to London or the UK and they want to have that experience again. And that's what we are offering at the school. As for the supperclubs, it's quite similar, especially because most of the time we offer food from Mexico. So it's people that are intrigued about, like, the culture, the Mexican culture, the Mexican flavors. There's this new wave as well here in London. Those use like a lot of new restaurants opening. They know more about the culture and the food, so they want to explore more about it.
Or in the best case scenario, they know that burritos aren't Mexican, and then they're like, we really want to try the actual traditional Mexican food, no?
Yeah, I really like it because the people that attend, it's not people that, okay, they think that burritos are Mexican and then that's it. They're not gonna
accept
care,
anything else.
Or they're not gonna care to research more about the topic.
Mm-hmm.
People that come to supperclubs, they want to learn, they want to hear the stories, they want to know what's the reason behind certain dishes, like what goes into it.
They come already highly motivated.
Yeah.
At some point then, I think it would be a very normal evolution for you to start teaching Mexican food.
Well, it's not an idea that I say no to. If the opportunity shows up, I would be happy to teach someone how to make tortillas.
You know that opportunities don't just show up because you've created your own opportunities.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you get to see when I'm doing a benchmark for the school, you see other schools that are doing Mexican cooking classes. And the menus that they offer is just like, I just want to cry. To be honest, it's like, why are you teaching that to people? Mexican food is so rich. Like, the whole gastronomy in Mexico is a massive country. So you get delicious food everywhere. And, like the new restaurants are trying their best. And some of them are, but there's still a lot that can be done.
Something that I've talked previously about on the show, it's the idea people have about Mexican food is rather pinholed. But I would say, trying to be fair, things are changing. So people like you and me are harvesting the hard work of loads of people, Mexican immigrants who have started setting the record straight and showing that there's more in Mexican food. Just to satisfy my curiosity, what kind of dishes really make you cringe from these classes that you see advertised?
Yeah. Well, it's not that they're bad, but I think they're quite basic, and I guess that's the whole point of it. You need to start from the beginning. But it's like, if you're gonna charge around £95 for a class, I think you can teach much more. But I mean, it's good that they're starting to do it because it means that there's a demand for it as well. People are starting to get interested in learning how to cook. Mexican gastronomy is so rich that you can start teaching a bit more. And it's true, like you're right when you're saying that it's up to us, Mexicans here in London to teach people. So I guess it's our part, like we need to do it instead of just complaining.
Yeah. For the moment being, you can keep an eye on Yolanda's upcoming supper clubs, and you can book as well a class with Carla for now. And speaking about how Mexican food is portrayed not only in restaurants but also in media, I recently read the last issue of Ambrosia magazine, and if you haven't read or even heard about this publication, I totally recommend it, especially the issue featuring the rising cooks and chefs in Mexico City. It was a really nice surprise to know that most of them, like me and like you, Yolanda, have come from incredibly different backgrounds, worked in a number of jobs that had little or nothing to do with formal culinary training, and yet have pursued their passion for food, well, opened up restaurants, bakeries, small eateries, and out of that thrust of inspiration and passion have come the most inspiring success stories many of us celebrate. Because as someone said, it is not what you do that people buy, but why you do it. And what is then, Yolanda, in the horizon of your work, and which plans do you have in mind?
Well, you're actually giving me a lot of hope with your comments. For me, definitely 2018 is going to be the year where I focus on various food projects that I have, but I've been holding on for the last year because I was planning my wedding. Well, who knew that planning a wedding abroad was going to take so much of my time, huh? So this year I want to start working on the blog again, developing more recipes, and more importantly, I want to start running supper clubs on a regular basis.
Well, that sounds already a good deal of planning ahead. Nourishing our creativity and having new experiences, I think, is the best way to keep our work exciting and fresh, and like you've said, just meeting people and bouncing ideas and daring, to do new things and try and say, well, what's the worst that can happen? No, you might like it in the end. So that's great. So tell us, what are you reading now? Which places or places have you visited lately that you recommend to the listeners to go and try new flavors here in London?
Well, I just finished reading Yerba Santa. It's a pretty good book about Frida Kahlo's stormy life and her passion for food and cooking. But the nice thing about the book that it's also contains recipes that she used to cook for special occasions, like dinner with her friends, family, but mainly for her traditional Day of the Dead offering, which is, I would recommend it totally.
Actually, I haven't read that book. I have read Frida's Fiestas. Mm-hmm. Or at least that's the name in English. In Spanish is Las Fiestas de Frida y Diego, which was written by Diego's daughter, Guadalupe. She was the daughter of Guadalupe Marin, who was Diego's first wife. I mean, it's a very endearing book because she talks about her own personal relationship with Frida and how Frida became like her second mother and the care and love that Frida used to put in the food that she would prepare precisely for friends, family, Diego, of course, for Guadalupe herself. These other books, which I've never heard about, sounds like the continuation, probably.
So it explains her life, like from where she was when she was young, when she had the accident on the bus, like it was when she was born again, right? And that's where the death, her godmother, appears. So she has this conversation with her where she was like almost dead. And the deal was that every year Frida had to do an offering to her. So that's why she started cooking. So every year she had to do an offering. And you get all these super tasty recipes on the book. And then, of course, it just moves on to like her relationship with Diego and all her affairs that she had during her life. So it's quite an interesting book.
The book has been published in English and in Spanish, and the name is Yerba Santa in Spanish, and the author is Francisco Hagenbeck. But we're gonna put links and the cover and all the information on this episode's blog post so you can get it.
In terms of places to visit, I was thinking more about countries where to go to have different experiences about food. In November, I was in El Salvador, and I think that country is really, really underrated. not only for the food but also the landscapes. Like it's a really nice tourist destination, and I must tell you, like if you ever have a chance, just go and visit. You're gonna love it. It's really nice, especially because it's so small. You can be like in half an hour you're on top of a volcano, then another half an hour you're at the beach, and then they have like the really amazing beaches. It's like the sun is so dark because of the volcanoes, so it's like volcanic sun. It's tiny but lovely country. And then I'm also going to Japan for my honeymoon. Yeah, and I cannot wait to eat all the food in there. I think I'm gonna gain a few stones probably.
A few stones. Let's hope not.
I wouldn't mind.
Just a few pounds probably. Well, that sounds great. Now, Yolanda, we're almost reaching the end of the interview, and I want to ask if you would share one recipe that you really, really like, that has a special meaning for you, that you could share with the audience, so we can put it up on this episode's blog post. And then, of course, your social media accounts, website, email. How can people reach you for catering events or supper clubs?
One of the recipes I really like from the website Eat Latin is it's a dried chilies pulled pork steamed baos. I really love this recipe because it represents who I am. The pulled pork is inspired by asado, which is a traditional dish in my hometown. And then you also have the steamed baos, which is, well, of course, from working here, my experience working here at the school. You can give it a go. It's quite delicious. And then, yeah, well, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And for the three of them, the handle is Eat Latin, so you can find me like that. My email address is yolanda@eatlatin.com. Just send me an email, and then we can talk about things that we can do together.
No, that's great. And I'm sure someone will pick up the invitation and reach out to you. Yolanda, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Rocio. I really enjoyed it.
Wish you nothing but good luck for your projects. Remember to follow Yolanda and Eat Latin to keep up with her latest adventures, and check this episode blog post to get Yolanda's recipe. You will find links for all the things that were mentioned in the show, such as the School of Wok, Yolanda's book recommendation, the recipe that she very kindly shared with all of you through the show, and of course the link to subscribe to my newsletter. So I decided to do something different for the upcoming episode. I keep having requests to talk more about what supper clubs are and how they work. I've been sharing the collaborations I've been doing with supper clubs and pop-ups. I thought it was great, to explore more the idea, to explain how it works, and it might as well be the right thing for you and what you are looking for to start your own side food business. And it's a safe way to try it. It's really fun. So we'll talk about that on the next episode. And I thought that we could together, you and me, do the second part of the episode. So I often get asked loads of questions about Mexican food, Mexican traditions, the history and use of certain ingredients. How about you send me your questions? Just record them, record a voice message on your phone, say your name, where are you from, and your question. I will put them on the air and try my best to answer them. How about that? So send them over to me. You will find my email address in this episode's description, and we'll make the next episode together. That sounds fun. To find more information about this project, please go to pasdechipotle.com. The show is now also available on YouTube. You can find the channel as Pass the Chipotle Podcast, free for everybody to listen on YouTube. And the idea is also that I will upload occasional videos. So keep an eye out, Pass the Chipotle Podcast on YouTube. Well, that's it for this week. The next episode will be recorded and produced in Mexico. I'm heading back, but you're coming with me wherever I go. So goodbye from me, my friends. Until the next time. grand fiestas are a unique way to remember and joyously celebrate the nation's history, cultural diversity, and ancestral traditions. From the patriotic celebrations like Independence Day and the anniversary of the Mexican Revolution to Christmas, Dia de la Candelaria, and the world-famous Day of the Dead. These iconic celebrations bring together new and ancient traditions, from the spiritual to the joyous, always welcoming locals and strangers in rewarding and soulful celebrations of life. The Mexican Fiestas issue of SABOR, This is Mexican Food magazine, explores the cultural history of the nation's festive calendar through in-depth articles and many traditional recipes to prepare unique dishes like pozole, chiles en nogada, Day of the Dead bread, and many more. To know more about the wonderful articles and recipes to start the making of your own family traditions, go to pasechipotle.com/magazine. Take SABOR with you on all your digital devices. Go to pasechipotle.com/magazine and get ready to cook, learn, and enjoy Mexican food like you never imagined.